Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 309, our weekly little get-together. We talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we're going to talk about how EA is dumping FIFA, Outriders has yet to make a profit, it seems, and VR spiders coming soon to your mouth directly through the wonders of technology. Fantastic, aren't they? But first, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching us live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, feel free to join in the conversation like Ninja Wolf, Stuffy Twitchy, and everyone else floating around. Otherwise, you can also comment down below, regardless if you're watching this here at YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. Just try to keep your comments germane to the conversation on hand. I'm very curious to know what your guys' points out there are, and I want to know what other information you might have that I might not be privy to. So please feel free to comment and fill me on what your ideas of the stories are. Before I get into the news of the week, however, I do want to mention a couple things that I have been playing. I've been going through both Rogue Legacy 2, which is a fantastic little game, especially if you like the original one, and Warhammer Demon Hunters Chaos Gate, or Warhammer Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, however it's said. That one, it's kind of rough. I want it to be great because it's a combination of Warhammer and XCOM, essentially, two things I love, and they just don't quite meld all that well together. If you get a hold of it, you'll see what I mean. It's really kind of buggy. It's not polished at all, but there is something good underneath all of that, so maybe when it drops in price. And that's, for the most part, my 2-bit review. Yes, Ninja Wolf, let's go ahead and move on to the very first story here, and that is about how FIFA and EA are breaking up. I'm going to go ahead and bring up this blog post from EA right here, and remember, all links to the stories will be provided either at the Discord server or down in the description below. You can find links to everything down there, including that Discord server. So, first story up right here. EA Sports Club, or EA Sports FC, is the future of interactive football. This is posted by EA earlier today to the actual press release. After nearly 30 years of creating genre-defining interactive football experiences, we will soon begin an exciting new era. Next year, EA Sports FC will become the future of football from EA Sports, alongside our 300-plus licensed partners across the sport. We're ready to take global football experiences to new heights on behalf of all football fans around the world. Everything you love about our games will be part of the EA Sports FC. The same great experiences, modes, leagues, tournaments, clubs, athletes will be there. Ultimate Team, Career Mode, Pro Clubs, and the Volta Football will all be there. Our unique licensing portfolio of more than 19,000 players, 700 plus teams, 100 plus stadiums, and 30 leagues that we've continued to invest in for decades will still be there. Uniquely in EA Sports FC. That includes exclusive partnerships with Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, and MLS, and more to come. Really, the only thing that's going to be missing from future EA football club games, I guess now, is the name FIFA and the World Cup, which has content every 4 years or so. Ninja Wolf asked, didn't I call this a couple of episodes ago? I didn't call it as much as the head of EA, I believe Andrew House, I think is his name. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's Andrew House. If you asked me any other time, I'd remember his name off the top of my head. Came out and said that the FIFA name really provides nothing other than costing them a lot of money to have the name FIFA. I think he derogatorily said it was just 4 letters on a box, and that's all it provides. Seems like EA finally pulled the trigger on severing the partnership, and they just dumped the FIFA name. But since FIFA isn't like the NFL in America, you don't need to go through them to get access to the players of teams. They're just their own thing. So EA just made deals with all the other teams and players individually, it sounds like, and dumped the FIFA name. Go them, by the way. The FIFA name has been dragged through the mud over the past few years. Hell, at this point, decades, it feels like. And I'm not even a soccer guy, and I even know this. It is just not a light organization anymore. So EA is, well, moving on, and it doesn't really sound like anything is going to change. And when I mean anything is going to change, I mean anything. So still expect things like the FUT cards and all that to float around and feature installments. They might not call them FUT cards anymore because I think that might be FIFA. Have FIFA in the name, but they'll still have those microtransactions in there. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. Either way, though, I do like the idea on its surface just of EA breaking away from FIFA. I don't necessarily like FIFA as an organization based on the stories I've heard of them. But hey, what the hell do I know? Like I said, I'm not even a soccer fan. If you do love soccer, however, and I know most of the world does, let me know what you think about this break here. Is the FIFA name really all that important to the game? Does it really bring anything to it? Because from what I can see as admittedly an outsider looking into this, it really was just 4 letters on a box, and every 4 years you got to release the World Cup version of the game rather than the normal version of the game. I don't really see any reason why EA would be spending this money. However, not to go without kicking and screaming at least a little bit, FIFA itself came out in this article from Video Game Chronicle. Once again, all links will be provided down below or at our Discord server, saying that FIFA confirms it will create an EA Sports FC rival and says they will be the only authentic, real game. So FIFA itself, not really liking the severing of this partnership, are going to try to create their own game of football with hookers and blackjack, more than likely to compete against EA's football club now. It's going to take a little while to get used to calling it football club rather than FIFA. In its own statement, FIFA said that the split from EA will allow it to launch new football video games developed with third-party studios and publishers, providing more choice for football and gaming fans. As an aside, please tell me you're going to partner with Konami and merge your PES into something. That would be hilarious that you end up going with that train wreck of a series, and that's something that I can actually see FIFA doing. FIFA strikes me as an organization that would contract us out to the lowest bidder, just to kind of get their name out there, because I'm sure that they were making a pretty penny off of EA before EA kicked them to the curb, and I doubt they're just going to let that go without some kind of fight. Back to the article, sorry. Video games developed with third-party studios and publishers, quote, providing more choice for football and gaming fans, end quote. That is good, by the way. I think that the Madden wasn't its best when it had to compete against the 2K series of football games coming out from 2K Games until EA bought up the NFL franchise license. But that is when I think those football games were the best. Hopefully this actually improves on both games. We'll see. Providing more choice in football for gaming fans in the lead up to the FIFA World Cup Qatar in 2022, the FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand in 2023. According to the footballing body, discussions are currently ongoing with leading game publishers, media companies, and investors. I'm willing to bet it's also going to be Tencent too. I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like Tencent or NetEase. In regard to the development of a new FIFA simulation football game for 2024, which would directly compete with EA Sports FC. Sooner than that, multiple non-simulation games are already under production and will launch during the third quarter of this year. The first of which is described as a tailored gaming experience featuring FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. I have to wonder if these are going to be kind of like mobile games or your equivalent of NFL Blitz or NBA Jam, where they're a little bit more silly, like a backyard soccer kind of game, just using FIFA logos over it. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Or, like I said, some kind of mobile game they run out. This is fascinating to me as someone who does not play these soccer games, but understands how massive FIFA, EA Football Club now is to Electronic Arts. It is one of their biggest selling, if not biggest selling games of every year. I believe it even tops Madden because of the just worldwide appeal to it as opposed to the America-centric appeal to Madden. I need to look that up before I just make that bold claim. But I think FIFA outsells Madden. I believe it does. This is a huge move because dumping the branding on something that has existed for 30 years is always a risky gamble because you never know really how people are going to react to it. That said, given all the scandals that FIFA has been involved in over the past few years, I'd imagine that this is probably the best time to make a clean break for them and start over again. Furthermore, I do fully support there being more than one soccer game every year because, well, competition breeds excellence. We've seen what happens when a company buys the license out to something and just sits on it, keeping anyone else from making anything, and they're able just to crank out the same shit year after year after year. Leads to stagnation, like we're seeing with the Madden franchise. So hopefully this breathes some life into this series. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but any improvement is better than no improvement at all. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about EA dumping the FIFA name to it. I do think it's actually a big story, even though I am not involved directly in it. And honestly, I don't have that much interest in it other than the business aspect of it. But I do understand how big of a move this actually is, especially after 30 years of dealing with FIFA. Let's move on to the next story here. This is more of just a vanity story I wanted to mention because I'm finally excited to see the last generation going by the wayside. Don't get me wrong, I love PlayStation 4. I love the older Xbox, but it is time for games to develop for the new hardware, and it seems that Gotham Knights is finally going to be one of those games that's exclusively current gen. From Video Game 24/7, Gotham Knights will only launch on the PlayStation 5, Series X and S, and PC. Thank Christ. Moving down to the article itself. The first official gameplay for two of Gotham Knights' main characters, Nightwing and Red Hood, was revealed today by Warner Brothers Games. By the way, Warner Brothers Games still actively being shopped around to be spun off from Warner Brothers Discovery. I wouldn't be surprised if they got bought before the end of the year. That's an aside and a prediction, not a guarantee. NDC today. But alongside a new look of how the game plays, we also learned that the title is set only to arrive on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and PC. Good. Great, because when you make a game cross-gen, you don't really make a game for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. What you do is you make a PlayStation 4 game and then give it a little spruce of paint on the PlayStation 5 version. They're not actually PlayStation 5 games. They're not using the full capability of the next-gen systems. They're still hobbled by what the previous generation can put out. So it is time for us to put those away, as much as I love them, and focus on the new. I'll answer that in a bit, by the way, Stealthy Twitchy. Back to the article itself here. This makes the upcoming open-world third-person action RPG, that's a lot of genres, one of the few actual proper new generation titles. So far this generation, we've seen most of the games have some sort of cross-gen, with Sony famously reversing its belief in generations policy by announcing various PS5 games would also be available for PlayStation 4 after initial reveals. There is no proper explanation as to why WB Games have decided to forego the last generation as of time of this writing. If you wanted my guess on it, I'd imagine it's because it was running like shit on previous generations. This is, in my belief, what fucked Cyberpunk over. Cyberpunk tried to do the cross-generational thing, which means they had to cater to the lowest common denominator, which are your PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. When that game launched, then, it came out, it was just buggy. I mean, we know the story to Cyberpunk at this point, right? Do I really need to rehash it? And I think a lot of that is because it was tied to those last generation systems. Moving out from them into the new generation means they can start taking advantage of the hardware that's there. And I do think that is why WB decided to forego the last generation, because they probably tested it out to see if it would work on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it probably ran like ass. So good on them for actually focusing on only one console. Stuffy Twitchy in chat says, what do I think of Nintendo will show at their indie event tomorrow? You know, we'll get into that a little bit later in the show, but I have really no idea what could be popping up on that. I'll get into some more details when we talk about upcoming events later on the show, though. Next up here, I find this fascinating not because of the headline itself, but because of the update attached to it, and we'll get into it here in a second. This is via Gamatsu. Nacon establishes Nacon Studio Milan, developing a survival game based on a popular film franchise, via Gamatsu. I do like hearing of new studios opening, by the way. I like seeing growth in the industry, and more games is always better. To the article itself. Nacon has announced the establishment of Nacon Studio Milan, a new label for its Italian development studio. It is comprised of RIMS racing developer Raceward Studio, which specializes in racing games, and a second team developing a survival game set in a post-apocalyptic environment based on, quote, one of the world's most popular film franchises. And then they went and showed some concept art here. I'm a sucker for post-apocalypse. I get that it's a genre that's been done to death, especially in video games. It's going to be really hard to top The Last of Us 1, Not 2. 2 was boring as hell, but at least the very first one here. Hell, even Zelda went post-apocalyptic with Breath of the Wild, so it is definitely something that has been done to death, but I'm always hungry for more of it. This isn't like zombies where you can burn out on it. I think there are many things you can go with it. So, concept art here, based on a popular film franchise. Well, what the hell could that be? Aha. Let's move down to the update down here. Update. The movie franchise in question is likely Terminator. The same Alamo sports shop from the films appears in the concept art. This kind of excites me because the last Terminator game to come out, that Terminator Resistance game, was definitely budget, but way more fun than it had any right to be from the developer that made Rambo. So I think that there is really high potential in a good Terminator game set during the future war, which Resistance was as well, and which this looks like it would be too. And especially if it was like a survival game where you kind of had to hide from most of the stuff, it'd make it like a quasi-stealth, I guess, where even the most basic of enemies really, really felt like they could kill you. Because in the Terminator franchise, they would be able to. I have very high hopes for this. I think we might actually be verged on a great Terminator game. Now, the people behind it, I mean, Nacon's not really a big boy publisher. They do publish some big stuff, but they're not like an EA or an Ubisoft or even a Capcom. So I do expect it to be on the lower budget side of things, but because of how well Terminator Resistance was, and that was definitely low budget, we've seen that some smaller studios and some middle team studios can pull off something great. So with any luck, this actually turns out to be good. Moving on to the next topic here. Speaking of publishers and sales and all that stuff, and I want to bring this up not because of the story itself, but because of what it means to be a developer in the current gaming space. From a site called Tweaktown, which admittedly I didn't hear of until now. Headline: Outriders did not make a profit in 2021. People Can Fly confirms. Following the substantial combined $200 million losses on Marvel Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy games, Square Enix has also made a loss on its multiplayer looter shooter Outriders. Outriders didn't even break even throughout 2021, the new financial reports from PeopleFly confirmed. The game was released in April of 2021, and despite being on the market for 3/4 of the year, Square Enix has yet to make revenues from the game that exceed its development, marketing, and distribution budget. While Square Enix has yet to make a formal announcement, and they likely won't outside of their upcoming full year 2021 results report on May 13th, the loss is inferred by PeopleFly's latest documents. Square Enix previously said Outriders exceeded their expectations on many metrics, including digital sales and active users. Essentially, People Can Fly only get paid royalties after the original development costs are recouped. And they haven't been paid royalties yet, which means it hasn't made a profit yet. They're still recouping budget, marketing, all that good stuff. So, Outriders, let me go to why I wanted to bring this story up. Outriders, a live service game with reoccurring spending in it, a reasonably successful game that people are still playing right now, today, with an upcoming expansion it's so successful, has yet to make a single dollar of profit for Square Enix. Square Enix, by the way, is still holding on to this IP. They sold off a bunch of their Western studios and Western IP, including Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain. But this they held on to. And I think this shows the precarious situation that so many publishers and developers find them under. Where you're having all these big budget games come out with millions of dollars spent on them, hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases, massive marketing blitz, teams that have swelled up to 1,000+ people. Hell, I think the newest Call of Duty has 3,000 different people working on it right now. So you can only imagine the budget that's going on behind them. And even if it sells well, it is not doing enough to make up for the budget spent on the game. So what you have is a publisher who, let's say, produces 10 AAA highest quality caliber games. And unless it's like Fortnite big, They are actively losing money on it. The other 9 of those 10 games are just loss leaders, where they're putting them out hoping to get eyes on the publisher, or hoping to get at least some kind of return on it. But they're not making money. And budgets are only continuing to spiral out of control when it comes to video games. This is unsustainable, because if you go a year and you don't have that Fortnite-esque hit, that reoccurring spending Destiny-like cash cow, your company is fucked hard, because all of your eggs are going into this basket hoping to churn out something massive like a Grand Theft Auto or even Call of Duty, to go back to that again. So if you don't get that hit and it's becoming increasingly harder to pull down those numbers, your entire portfolio is just screwed. This is unsustainable. And this is one of the reasons why I think Square Enix cut off half of itself, because they couldn't withstand the bleed. And it's another reason why I think Square Enix is trying to sell themselves. The big rumor was that they might have been going to Sony a couple weeks ago. That was what the rumor by Greg Miller and Jeff Grubb was, that they were kind of teasing online about a month ago or so. That deal might have fallen through, because it sounds like it was expected to be announced by now. It could still go through, it might not, but it definitely sounds like Square Enix, along with WB Games, along with Ubisoft, are looking for people to buy them, because it has gotten so obscenely expensive to deliver a AAA-like experience that also has all of the live service elements and reoccurring content to keep people playing that is expected now from shareholders. The future of games, in my opinion, when it comes to your big budget titles, is dark if you're not Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo. They can afford to stay open because they have their console sales helping to buoy them up, or they're part of a big megacorp in the case of Xbox. The other guys, oh man, you can always go a Capcom route, I guess, and just keep remastering all of your older games, because people are going to buy those sight unseen until you really screw those up. But man, it is getting nasty on that front. And I am just not hopeful for the future of big AAA development. That said, the indie and middleware scene, bumping hard. My favorite games of the past few years have been indie games, and the middleware scene with what Embracer has been doing, buying up all these abandoned IP or dead IP and cranking out just remasters of old games. Hey, I'm fine with that. I'd rather have a remaster of Deus Ex Human Revolution than have no Deus Ex at all. Moving on to the next topic here. This is via VentureBeat. Xbox plans to launch a streaming puck and Samsung app in the next year. Microsoft is done waiting for you to come to Xbox. Instead, the company is gearing up to bring Xbox to wherever you are. This is part of the company's Xbox Everywhere initiative, which expanded yesterday by adding Fortnite to the cloud gaming. While you can already stream games from the cloud to your phone and PC, Microsoft has plans to expand through their family room television, according to people who are familiar with the plans. I swear to you, I know how to read. In the next 12 months, Microsoft plans to release an Xbox cloud gaming streaming device. This will likely look like an Amazon Fire Stick or perhaps a small Roku-like puck. And like a Roku, the Xbox streaming device will enable you to access mobile, movie, and TV services in addition to a library of games through your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Additionally, if you already have a Samsung Smart TV, though, you can maybe skip a separate device entirely. Microsoft is working closely with its partners at Samsung to develop an Xbox game streaming app for the company's televisions. That, too, should they be within the next 12 months. That reminds me of something similar to the Steam app. Samsung TVs have like a Steam streaming app. I can't remember. It's going to be called Steam TV or something like that. That lets you hook up through a wireless network your Steam to your TV as long as you have a computer capable of running it. This is where Microsoft wants to go. I don't think Microsoft is actually interested in making hardware anymore. They want to go full Netflix for games, and that is what they are hammering to do. Xbox Game Pass isn't necessarily profitable. In fact, I highly doubt it is. Listen to what they say about that. Andrew House Oh, okay. Okay. God damn it. I have to look this up. One's Andrew House. One's Andrew Wilson. Andrew House is the Sony guy. Andrew Wilson is the EA guy, I think. Yeah, Andrew Wilson is the EA guy. Phil Spencer is the Xbox guy. Jesus Christ, I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I just got my brain scrambled. Listen to what Phil Spencer says when talking about the Game Pass. He does not say it is profitable. He says it is sustainable. When mentioning things like that in a public forum, Phil Spencer has to be very crafty with his words, because if he says it's profitable and it's not, that opens them up to lawsuits from the shareholders. So if Xbox Game Pass was profitable, he would say it was profitable. Instead, he says it's sustainable. Microsoft is taking losses to become the Netflix of gaming. Although, given how badly Netflix shit the bed recently, I don't know if that's something they're necessarily going to want to continue going down that route. So you might see some changes to that subscription model plan coming down the pipe. We'll see. I fully believe this is going to happen, by the way. Microsoft will take innumerable losses to beat Sony. They can afford to. I think Microsoft could probably buy Sony multiple times over. Once again, one of those things I have to look up. I could be just talking about ass, but I believe that's the case. I'm looking forward to this, by the way. I have no intention of ever buying an Xbox again because I have a PC. And if I have a PC and they put all their games on PC, why would I buy an Xbox? I'd sooner just buy Game Pass and give them the $50 or $100 a year, whatever the final price might be, and play all their first-party games that way. I'm very curious to see how this goes, especially if they have a built-in app to the TV itself. Cloud gaming is almost there. It's not there yet. In America specifically, we do have some broadband issues, but in infrastructure issues, rather. But that's getting solved. And as we get closer and closer to actually providing high latency internet across the country, the idea of cloud gaming will start to become more and more appealing. And I think we're only a few years away from actually being at that point. And Microsoft seems to be trying to position themselves in a place where they will already be there, ready to go when that finally hits. So good on them. Look forward to seeing what's coming from here. Final news story of the day. We do have some more things after that, but the final news story of the day is this here from PC Gamer, and I got this just because it's weird as hell. Scientists add mouth haptics to VR complete with spiders. Because why not? New haptics are always being worked into VR, and according to IFL Science, a group of scientists from Carnegie Mellon University's Future Interactive Group are truly going above and beyond. The team has outfitted an Oculus Quest 2, as you can see up here, with ultrasonic transducers which can generate ultrasonic energy. For some reason, they pointed this straight at the mouth to add a unique sensation to the VR experience. The energy directed to your mouth creates sensations that can be pulsations or swiping motions across the lips, or ongoing vibrations, all at different speeds and intensities. It's said that these can approximate the real feelings of wind, or perhaps even, yes, spiders. And the reason why they keep going to spiders in the article is because their tech demo that they use for this had the image of spiders walking over you, and you could feel the going across on this. This is one of those things that it sounds cool on paper, but look at this thing they have hooked up there. Look at this massive ribbon cable here, and it's hooked up to like a bank of what looks to be about 40 air jets. Yeah, this is inefficient. There's no way this is coming anytime soon. This is more of a can we do it as opposed to we are going to do it step in technology. That said, like so much technology out there, if the pornography industry gets a hold of it and decides to run with it, and you can only imagine what they would do with things that make it feel like things are on your mouth, then it might actually see a future. Just think back to the old VHS days. The reason why VHS beat out beta, well, because that industry embraced VHS and not beta. And that is just how technology advances, usually through pornography. Go figure. That said, too, I still think that this is one of those things that's just never going to come to be in any kind of mass market appeal. maybe 10 or 15 years down the line. VR is still relatively a new technology. It's starting to grow. It's starting to become a little bit more acceptable, especially with like your Oculus Quests and all that. But I don't think it's there just yet. Anyways, that wraps up the news stories. I do have 2 upcoming events. One, the already mentioned Nintendo of America presenting the Nintendo Indie World. Tune in tomorrow, May 11th at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for a new Indie World North America showcase featuring roughly 20 minutes of information on upcoming indie games heading to a Nintendo Switch. As to what these could be, I have no idea. I can't think of any like exclusives that would be on the Switch, so it'd probably be smaller stuff. They might show that Shadowrun trilogy. I know that Shadowrun trilogy is supposed to be ported over to the Switch, so that might get shown here. Those are games that have been on the PC for a while, but hey, a portable version would be nice. I don't know what else. I just don't know what fallen in the games that I would think would be on that I would want to see on the Switch wouldn't be what I would consider from indie developers. They would be from bigger name brands. Like, for example, I would love to see more on Square Enix's Front Mission remake that is coming to the Switch. But that's probably not going to be shown on here. That's going to be something else. That's more of a direct style, like a straight typical Nintendo Direct than anything else. Also coming out later this week, Dead Space is having yet another developer live stream on May 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For this stream, they're going to be focusing more on the art of the upcoming Dead Space remake. Really looking forward to this. Dead Space is one of the greatest horror games of all time. Definitely one of the best science fiction horror games. I'd even put it up against some of the more modern day mainstreams as well. I am very excited for what I'm seeing on this, and I am very curious to see what the final project is going to look out. I myself probably won't watch this because I'm trying to go into it as blind as possible, and because I'm wondering if EA will do a one-for-one remake of Dead Space, where it's essentially the same thing from start to finish, or if they will go through more like the remake, the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube that Capcom pulled out, where it was roughly half the old game and half a brand new bag. I really don't know where they're going with this one. It seems to be leaning a little bit more toward the latter of those two, which really excites me because I would love to see more of this fantastic universe, which so unfortunately got cut down after the third one. That does it for the news and upcoming releases. I do have, news and upcoming events rather. I do have some new releases for you all. First up, Eiyuden Chronicle Rising on the Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and PC coming out this week. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is an action RPG set in the same world as Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, featuring town upgrade mechanics, fast-paced combat. A prequel world to the Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. That's what the description says, despite being oddly grammatically phrased. What this more or less is a prequel to the kick-started Eiyuden Chronicles, which I am looking forward to because it's more or less made by the team that made Suikoden, and it is in fact being pitched as a spiritual successor to Suikoden, because Konami just won't make another one of those games, so those people got together and went, fuck it, we'll make our own. This is free on Game Pass, by the way. I'll probably play it there, but I also think it's like less than $20 on Steam if you just want to buy it outright. Not positive on that, I believe so. Also coming out this week, Evil Dead the Game on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Step into the shoes of Ash Williams or his friends from the iconic Evil Dead franchise and work together in a game loaded with over-the-top co-op, PvP, and multiplayer action. As much as I love Evil Dead and as entertaining as this looks, I do believe this is going to be dead in the water. It is yet another asymmetrical multiplayer game where you and 3 friends try to fight off hordes of the undead, which sounds like, well, let's see, Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, World War Z, but was once Evolve, although with a giant monster instead of undead. Insert your asymmetrical multiplayer game here. Dead by Daylight, the Friday the 13th game, Predator Hunting Ground. There are a myriad of these things already. We don't really need another one, as awesome as the Evil Dead franchise is. Also out this week, Brigadine, the Legend of Runerzia, Runersia. The continent of that name, is home to 6 major powers of more than 40 bases, 100 knights, and 50 types of monsters. Select to organize knights and monsters into troops and conquer enemy bases. Another oddly worded sentence to essentially describe what looks to be a tactics game of some kind. I remember Brigadine from way, way back in the PlayStation 1 days, and this seemed to be a sequel to that. However, given its lack of news and its somewhat murky developers, I don't think this is going to be all that great. But hey, I do have it on my wish list. I'm going to take a look at it. I just can't recommend it. Then finally, something that I am extremely eager to get a hold of later this week, Stellaris' expansion Overlord comes out. Overlord is a new full expansion for Stellaris and grants access to new features designed to unlock the next level of your empire. Got a galaxy full of potential subjects to glory or subjugation. New mechanics provide many ways to specialize your vassals' roles within your empire, bring new plans and subjects under your reign, and new magnificent megastructures to project your power further and faster. For those of you who don't know, Stellaris is a 4X space game that's essentially create your own space opera and dominate the galaxy, be through force, religion, diplomacy, economics, any way you want to do it. The Overlord expansion is going to focus more on the vassalization system, so you actually have underlings who are competent rather than just waiting to be absorbed into your empire. Also a bunch of quality of life fixes, you have new megastructures, all kinds of good things on here. Really looking forward to this one, and I will be streaming it when it comes out on Thursday. And that wraps things up. A little bit of a shorter episode of Game Points, but there really wasn't too many news stories I wanted to focus on this week. Thank you all for showing up. We do stream this live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. And if you like what you saw, you know what every streamer wants when it comes to follows, bits, subs, likes, whatever form of happy little thumbs up your site might be having whenever you watch this on. Because I do put this up on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, the Discord server, link provided down below, and all that good stuff. You can follow the show on Twitter at GamePointsPC, myself, Stephen Brown, at CapitalistPig21. And that's that. Thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints 309, and until next week, I'm out of here.